the unknown legality of other Formula 1 cars in the US Grand Prix exposes an awkward reality. The disqualifications of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc from the US Grand Prix raised an uncomfortable thought: how many other Formula 1 cars were illegal but weren't caught? Hamilton's Mercedes and Leclerc's Ferrari were just 2 of 4 cars to undergo a physical floor and plank wear inspection check. The others were Max Verstappen's race-winning Red Bull and McLaren's Lando Norris, who went on to finish 3rd. Both passed the checks, compared to Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, who didn't. But the remaining 16 cars, who knows whether they would have passed? They could all be legal and be illegal, or a mix of the two. The point is that we do not know. We don't know about the second Ferrari that inherited a podium because the disqualification of 2 cars did not mean that their respective sister cars had to be automatically checked as well. There is no guarantee that Carlos Sainz's Ferrari or George Russell's Mercedes would have been found to be illegal, as setups can be slightly different between cars, as different approaches from drivers to curb usage, for example, can mean that all important few tenths of a millimeter difference in plank wear by the end of the Grand Prix could make all that difference. And we don't know whether any of the other cars that scored points in this race broke the plank rules either, or any cars outside the top 10 either. In fact, checking the floor and plank isn't always on the to-do list, at least based on what the FIA discloses. There appears to have been no plank checks carried out at the Qatar or Japan Grand Prix, for example, and none at some other races earlier in the season. The last physical floor and plank wear inspections appear to have been carried out post-race before the US Grand Prix was in Singapore, on Verstappen's Red Bull and Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin. This is presumably because of the risk of plank wear was perceived to be a lot lower at the intervening races. This ties in with the FIA being able to target problem areas when it sees fit. And as the disqualified teams acknowledged in Austin, the nature of the circuit and the sprint race weekend format clearly created the potential for some plank trouble, which makes it likely that the officials specifically wanted to check the leading cars for compliance. But the selective scrutineering process means that there could be other cars further down the grid who have got away with it simply because they were not checked. And that's the point. The FIA has good reason to want to check some of the leading cars and found that 2 of them were illegal. It is not a grand leap to think of some of the other 16 might have failed the same checks too, so why not be sure? It is important to note that it is, to a degree, just a frustrating reality that we have to accept. While the FIA's post-race scrutineering checks are extensive, they are not, and they cannot, be all-encompassing. Nor should they be. Some stuff simply does not merit every part of every car being checked. Streamlining scrutineering is a necessary practicality, and there's also an argument for not telegraphing to teams what is being checked when and when. Otherwise, someone will eventually try to game the system. Certainly it was an interesting Grand Prix race weekend, and we have been speaking a lot about these flaws on these Formula 1 cars, but we have to think, do we need more consistent checks from the FIA throughout every race car? Of course it is. Unfortunately, not necessarily possible to do because there are 20 cars and you can't necessarily have every single FIA delegate going onto every single Formula 1 car and having to check it. It is just going to take too long, unfortunately, and they need to move these cars to the next Grand Prix race weekend, which, of course, could come one race after the other, like this weekend, where we're moving straight away to Mexico.